All right. Good morning, everybody.
Happy
Good
Friday.
morning.
Oh, happy Friday. We're back. Our last episode of the year.
All right.
I know. Amazing.
Yes, and for those of you who are maybe jumping on the first time, we're the Proactive Health Collective of Keene, a group of somewhat like-minded practitioners. What do? We're looking to put forth ideas and truth and helpful experiences to help our community grow.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
It's very collaborative. We always kind of throw ideas out and then have our own sort of opinions from our own backgrounds about what we think about it or different ideas that we have or how it looks in our specific lens of medicine. It's really been so fascinating to me to get everybody's perspective of medicine. Really great for our group coming together.
Yeah, there's never been a time where people have been more focused on their health, and sure, maybe it's taken on some forms that we don't necessarily, if we could go back and rewrite, wouldn't necessarily choose. But the truth is everyone's really focused. So it's been just a wonderful opportunity to get together sort of around this little central fire that we have here to discuss from all these different great lenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in keeping with our namesake, Proactive Health Collective, the whole idea is to be proactive, and sometimes it takes a little pain to get us to start to be proactive. And I think you're probably alluding to that, Dr. Matt, in that we have experienced a little bit of pain, right, collectively, and it's all in what do we do with it? Do we repeat the cycle, or do we learn from it, and do we grow from it? And I think that's a huge theme. And I think for me and for us in kind of wrapping up the year, and having the holidays, get together with family and stuff, but it's also a time of sort of reflection on how did things go, and a time to kind of settle in for a moment. Maybe like you guys saying, take off a little time where you can just, because we're all busy all the time, go. But we also need time for reflection and time to kind of look at, maybe some of the lessons, some of the challenges that we've been through, so that we can, formulate, an idea or plan, or, in a direction of where we want to go from there.
Absolutely. I think we need more integration in the Western world. We're so go, and we don't really give ourselves time to just absorb what's happened and let our subconscious kind of catch up. It's like at the end of a yoga class, you always do shavasana, and it's just integrating the benefits of the treatment. And I think in your lifestyle, that's so important. Whether it's a reflection at the end of the day or thinking about your day or the things that you're grateful for. You definitely need more of that. And this time of year is a good time of year in the bigger scale of things to really look at it and do a little assessment.
And that's something that you see. I mean, if you look at the more connected cultures around the world, more cultures that are still living close in association with their sort of original instructions that their people have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, there's always a time of renewal that's both, on an individual level, on a family level, and on a community level. And that is something that is a big gap here in the States and in most Western culture. And we just, up here in New Hampshire, where we all are, we just saw 2 feet of snow, which reminds us, what's coming over the next few months. And there's nothing more delicious, and I might say even sacred, than that pause that this like crazy blanket of white causes us to take. I mean, everything stills. Even the birds are starting to quiet down a little bit, although the chickadee is always the first one back out. I love them. And so it just, it asks us to take pause. And so, we've talked a lot about being proactive about health over the course of this past year. And one of the big things is taking time to really honor where we're at, wherever that is. And that has to do with seasons also. Hey, Becky.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. I get really excited with the snow, and because I love snowboarding. It's my favorite thing to do. So when we get a lot of snow, I I'm like, can't wait to get out there, and I get really energized. And I start,
Yesterday was perfect snow for that.
oh my gosh,
Mhm.
the light and
Back powder.
I know. I got a
Gene!
new bird. What is that?
Charlie looked at him.
I've got to
Oh my goodness.
wait till we get a bit more.
Great. I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
But even when I'm in the middle of the woods, it's the quietness of the winter that's just really soothing.
Yeah.
Everything gets quiet and still. Yeah. A lot of
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things about skiing, you know, get up at the top of the mountain and you know, and there's nobody else around and it's just, you have that blanket of snow. So it's very quiet and just peaceful. Yeah.
And the ski
yesterday was so cool.
10, 15 minutes of meditation on the ski lift between every run.
There you go. Incorporate it in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were kind of talking about Becky, you know, taking a pause, maybe a little bit of, you know, Matt was mentioning ritual.
Games. Games.
Games.
Bring the joy.
That's what it's
of-
My
about for
daughter
you?
comes home, let the games begin. Dale's an old fart when it comes to games. So Krista and I will never stop playing games.
Are you guys familiar with the game Quiddler? Anybody know that game?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
I
God, we love it.
And I'm a mean Quiddler player because I love both the
Oh,
word and
we're gonna have to have a Quiddler day then.
match.
because
Oh yeah, we gotta do that. We should do like a game night some night at my
We love
house.
that.
Yeah.
You guys don't know Matisse, Allison? Oh my gosh, great little game. It's like sort of like Scrabble in a deck of cards.
It's like
but
rummy, but it's got words. Okay, so you don't get bored. It's not just like, you know, it is so fun. And we
Awesome.
have like the warnest, outest Scrabble dictionary as a, you know, to challenge. I mean, it's like it's been rained on. It's all dilapidated. You know, yeah. And she's bringing the cat. She's bringing Wendy. Remember the cat that got lost?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Keep an eye on that cat.
Yeah.
Found it.
Well, speaking of reflection, do you guys have any webinars that we've done that were your favorite that really stood out, or anything specific from a webinar that you kind of stayed with you or made an impression?
They're all a blur to me anymore, but I did enjoy it, and I don't. Were Matt and Tisa absent in that one? We just kind of talked about our favorite thing about what we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the big takeaway for me was in a time where we had a whole society of reaction, you know, to this perceived threat of this novel virus. We got together every week and talked about the sort of the opposite of so you're either going to like be able to, you know, you're going to react to something, or you're going to be able to respond, you know. And so one of the sort of qualities of a, you know, operating system could be responsibility, we could say, and that is really the ability to respond, responsibility. But the hyphen back in there, I think it's really more important to do. And I think that one of the things that I've enjoyed so much about this year is getting together with all of you and talking about the ability to respond, talking about the capacity that we have as human beings to be resilient and resourceful and produce sustainable strategy, even in a time where things are so wild, has just been a real light for me. And I think that, you know, just going by the feedback that we've had here, people have had so much, and all the little tidbits we've gained along the way, it's just been so valuable.
Yeah. I've learned so much from all of you. And I think, you know, we've just really encouraged each other and fed into each other's learning curve in so many ways. I did love, well, this was really recent, but I did really love that one where we like you were mentioning, somebody was just mentioning, when we talked about kind of what makes us tick. Oh, I know, Allison, you had asked the questions like, what do you like most? What do you like? You know, what's your favorite thing to work on? Things like that. That was really fun. And I think I got a lot of good feedback from that one too, from people who were listening.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I think people are curious about that. And another thing we talked about doing, which we should do during that first part of the new year, is you know, case studies, actually going into some fascinating, some of our more interesting things that would be of interest to others.
That would be great.
I'd
Yeah.
really like that. That would be good.
Yeah. It strikes me that what people like about that kind of stuff is that they can sometimes feel a connection. Because when I do pretty much weekly webinars, and then, I'll end up having calls with people, and then leading up to, potentially doing an evaluation and that kind of thing. The thing that I hear most from people most consistently is, when you were talking about this particular thing, that's what I felt like it was me you were talking to. And I think that, we all, a good friend of mine once said, as human beings, what we really want is to be gotten, is for somebody to understand us, like above all things. And I think that's why we seek out, the company of others, like, people that are kind of in our camp, because we have this kind of connection, like, wow, somebody else gets where I'm at, and it's one of the nice things about the holidays is getting together and just connecting with people and knowing that, somebody kind of just gets you. And, a lot of times that's your family, because they grew up with you. They pretty much know you in and out, right? And so they get all your little idiosyncrasies and the bad things about you and the good things about you, they get you. So, I think that's probably why that was a popular episode.
Well, we talked too about like how our work complements each other. And it was really interesting, Jean, because I saw somebody in September, you saw the same person in October, and then I saw her a few weeks ago. And it was really interesting because the work that you did with her was confirming of work that I was doing with her. But you were using a different method of analysis. You were using the kinesiology, the stuff you do with the, but I thought that was so interesting and good. One of the things that I had really thought about was thyroid, but it was a little bit of a hard sell, and then you had checked it right off. So you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, kind of an interesting thing is, like, pretty much if you check off thyroid, you're probably going to get it right most of the time, anymore.
yeah, no,
these days.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think another connection that we all have had, especially over this particular year, and a lot of the conversations that we have talked about emotions, because when we were working at the farmers market, while that was in season, we had a lot of people who came up to us and who are watching the show and just like, oh my gosh, the emotions, that you guys are so spot on, because how pertinent is that right now? And I know we've touched it in different aspects, like how it affects the physiology and, moving forward into what we think about and creating a different mindset, because I mean, in the work that we do, it's like you're either reactive or you're proactive, right? And so, I think that really, like Jean, what you were saying, like people are like that really connected with me. I love anything that you guys talk about when it comes to emotion, and definitely transforming, our emotions of survival into growth for the coming year, and just reflecting on where have we been with our emotions now and where are we moving to for the new year. So it'll be fun to see how that transpires.
On that note, I just had a little aha moment this past week, and it's going to sound silly when I say this, because it's going to be, of course, but I was thinking about, we were talking about Seamus, my youngest son's birth, and we had him at home. He came out really quick. The midwife didn't get there, so I caught him actually over the toilet bowl, which is an interesting thing. But Kieran, my oldest son, was asking about it, and we were talking about when he comes out and that he needs to start breathing, and we give him a little smack on the bottom to get him going. And it occurred to me, it's like crying. It's our first thing that we experience as a human. Like when we come out into the world, and it's absolutely necessary, because it in that crying, it gets us to take our first breath. And I just thought about it. It's like, wow. Because I kind of come from the place of, and I've cried many times in my life, but I also come from the place of like trying to be strong and not cry kind of thing. But it's like crying is our most primal, our first strategy that we ever learned when we get into this planet. So I don't know, I just had that sort of aha moment, like, wow, that's, of course, it's like your core, it's like your most basic core strategy right from the very beginning. And then you add other ones as we go on, obviously, but that's, you know.
Well, when you think about that, I want to say, I don't know if you guys experience this, but people will just fall in my office. I mean, I think there's something about it, like close the door and like Dr. Jean was saying, you know, you're being heard. And maybe you've been, you know, dealing with huge depression for 20 years, right? And all of a sudden, or pain. I mean, I had somebody in here a couple of weeks ago, I mean, just wailing. You could hear it throughout. I mean, it wasn't just confined to but people feel the freedom. Somebody else just, you know, just, I'm sorry. They say, I'm sorry. And I always have, I'm like, you know, I keep so much Kleenex on hand because of this. I mean, because that is so critical. And sometimes people have just been ignoring their health issues and get going along and surviving. And then all of a sudden it's like, boom. And so when people say that to me, I'm sorry. I'm like, no. This happens a lot in here. This is just the way it is, you know? Mm-hmm. And I don't try to talk them out of it, or I just let them cry, and I don't say too much. I just let that go.
Yeah, we have these stigmas against emotion, and I hear on the tissues, we have tissues at every chiropractic table for the same reason. And, you know, emotion is nothing but energy in motion. Mm. You know, what happens is that the mind hijacks an emotion and creates a story around it, you know, by some feedback, something that we got a long time ago. So, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I shouldn't be doing this, or because someone, well-meaning perhaps, hopefully at some point said, don't cry, you know, whatever the reason is. But the truth is, it's absolutely essential. And that if you cannot experience a certain level of emotion and that your system becomes static, guess what's going to set up camp? Some sort of symptom, some sort of pain. And that's designed to interrupt your life so that you can experience the emotion.
Yeah.
In my house, it was a little different. It was more like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah. I remember that, you know.
Shove it down, kid. Shove it down.
Stop your crying, or I'll give you something to cry about.
It's pretty common for people to cry with acupuncture too, especially their first treatment. And I think we're just hold a lot of that emotion in your body. And when you free up the energy, the emotions flow. There's actually one point, it's on the gallbladder meridian, which is interesting. But it's called the foot governor of tears. And it really does provoke some crying. Whenever I needle that point, I say, so this is, if you start getting emotional, that it could be because we did this point.
Wow.
But it makes me think that the gallbladder pairs with the liver, which is about like that, just that go, and kind of like holding it all together. And the stress kind of like, it governs the free flow of energy in the body. So when it's not moving freely and you're just holding it all and you're not letting it move, when you finally do, it'll release.
Now it's so interesting because, of course, the gallbladder is, in order for healthy gallbladder functions, the bile has to flow. I mean, it is a flow. It is an organ that assists in this flow. And when it's not working, you get the hard stones, and it's almost like
of gallbladder is rage. So if you have an unhealthy gallbladder, it's like the liver's like anger and the gallbladder is almost like rage, and then it governs courage at the same time. So
that's baked into there, you know, rage. It's baked into the word.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing. So we have, you know, when the emotions get stuffed, and we were talking about like depression earlier, you know, so if you can't experience this range of emotion that you have, then what happens is it goes into the body and it gets stored. And there's plenty of research out there that you can pick up about that, how stuff gets stored in the body. And it goes into this sort of defense physiology. So the whole physiology on a subconscious sort of like pre-rational, like if thought and the mental capacity is all the rational, we're talking like pre-rational. We're not even getting to the mind yet. Okay. So it goes into the body, the whole body, basically tail tuck, head comes forward, disconnecting from the heart because frankly, it's just too painful. And then the whole back of the spine, I don't really have enough room here, but basically from like the low where the neck actually ends, like right here, all the way down to just sort of like right where the ribs end, becomes this gap. And so that whole part of the spine checks out. And guess what flows out of that part of the spine? All of the nervous system innervation for your gallbladder, for your liver, for your adrenals, for your digestion. And we know the gut is this emotional brain.
Pancreas too, I would think. Yeah.
Pancreas, yep, all of that stuff. So every single one of those things, and there was a study back in the 20s, the Windsor studies, awesome stuff, where they did 212 autopsies. And of the 212 autopsies, 100% of them had a disease correlation between whatever disease or organ was the problem and where it was innervated from the spine. There was also a disease in the spine. So, hey, chicken or the egg doesn't really matter, but we're so much more complex than I think we often give ourselves credit for, because we look at the problem rather than stepping back and looking at the global thing. And I think that's what's so valuable about this group, is that every single person on this panel is so good at looking at what's the root cause of this. Like, yes, we can address and be sympathetic to some of these symptoms, but there's a reason that this is happening. You know, we as a culture, you know, it's like we like to say, if you step on the dog's tail, the bark comes out of the mouth, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what do? Well, we look at the mouth as if there's some sort of problem. You know, you got to get the foot off the tail.
Yeah.
No.
You turn on a light, you turn it on from the switch on the wall, not the light.
Matt,
Right.
what was the name of that study? You said there was something.
The Windsor studies. The Windsor studies. Yeah. It's
how appropriate.
yeah, you can find that stuff anywhere. That's been, I mean, across disciplines, very easy, great study, and something that unfortunately we've as a culture just sort of been like, yeah, no, because it's much easier to treat a symptom than it is to actually treat the root cause. That requires a bit more thought, a bit more art, and as we've already been talking about today, connection. You know, it's like, Gene, what you were talking about, like that with those amazing webinars that you do, you know, people feeling like that you've been able to like reach right through and talk directly to them. Like, what is that but a thread of connection? And if we don't have threads of connection right now, you know, and we can't feel heard, like we were saying earlier, I mean, that's the very foundation of like weaving community, really. And there's never been a time where we're more starved for that. We're internal right now. We're all cloistered up in our homes for the most part, you know, as a general thing. Some of us aren't, but it's just that people are staying so much more internal. Like we're craving that community, craving to be together. And I think that now is just the time to bring that forward.
Yeah. So we have Dr. Kathy Markle, who raised her hand. Ooh. Kathy, are you out there? She raised her hand. So
can we unmute her? Can we unmute her? I think she's muted.
Bottom left of your screen there, Kathy.
I think.
Ooh, this is exciting.
Asked to unmute, and I can't seem to unmute her. Yeah,
she's got to unmute herself.
Unmute.
No, unmute.
Yeah.
So Kathy, if you can unmute, you should be able to hear us. And if not, type us in the chat or something if we're doing something wrong.
Sorry about that.
No.
So while we're waiting for that, you know, just a quick little side note on network spinal analysis, network spinal, what doctors Matt and Tisa practice in their office. I've also practiced this many years. I had, you know, in receiving that care, I can remember one day, this was many years ago, I had the most primal emotional release that even imaginable. And it was like, I was just there, and all of a sudden it just like let loose, like it was like somebody turned on a faucet. My eyes literally, water was streaming out like a hose was spraying out. That's how much water was coming out of my eyes. And it was like the most primal thing. What a release. Oh my God. Just unbelievable. You know, when you really emote or move those emotions that have been stuck, you know, like Matt was talking about, it's an unbelievable weight taken off your shoulders. So
yeah,
I just wanted to kind of mention that. And
yeah, in other countries with, you know, the grief, if you experience loss, it's it's accepted that people will go in the middle of the street and scream at the top of their lungs and wail and sob. And we here in America, it's like you're so strong, good job, you know, when you don't cry at a funeral or something.
Right.
I just wonder why we're so sick, you know, as a culture, or if I can call it a culture, you know. And it's like, you know, Gene, you're talking about that, just like amazing release. Like you think about what that does, like that literally like rattles your bones, you know. And where do all of our, you know, like our white blood cells come from, right? We're talking like getting into the bone marrow. So it literally rattles the bones and releases an unbelievable immune response. It's so, so important. So many people go into grief, they stuff it down, and then they end up really sick. We don't have a way to process that here in this culture as a general, you know, if you're not seeking it out.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you talk about that, vibration is important too, you know, like you're like, but if you like have this moan or this groan, like that's truly primal, that, you know, vibrates through your being, like, oh, you know, you're kind of matching what's held. And it's, you know, it's kind of like an oil-based cleaner can clean up an oil spot, right? So you're matching that vibration to really to break loose what's in there, and you can't do that when you're holding back and you're not really ever going there. And so, you know, animals do this all the time. They get up in the morning, they go, you know, they kind of go through their process. And like you said, in our culture, we tend to limit that or subdue that a little bit because we're not thought of as strong that way. We're thought of as more weak.
And so these sounds, just to give us a little bit of like, so where's the neurology here? Is that when you make that sound of emotion, that wailing in the street, what that is, that's your limbic system, right? Which is very closely related to your bioenergetic, your life force, your chi, your innate intelligence, as chiropractic would call it, just that very governing force of the metabolicness of the body. And so when you actually let that out, what happens is that these two interface. And if we aren't able to do that, it gets kind of stuffed back down, nothing really happens. The key here is that the sound must be sustained. So think about that woman in the street. Think about that, like, you know, the Portuguese grandmother who's just lost her, like, you know, like favorite grandson who's just out on that cobblestone, like, I mean, just visceral, like rattling. Everyone feels it. Everyone knows, you know, what's happening here. And when she's able to do that, and here's the key, it has to go for more, it takes 5 to about 7 seconds for that emotion to reach the nervous system, to reach the spine, which is the house of the nervous system. So it must be sustained. And we always say that it gets real at the end, at the very end of the breath, when there's like no more air left, to push that out to the very, very bottom. When there's nothing left, will have a profound effect.
Awesome.
Good to know.
That's good. So keep it going, at least 5 to 7 seconds, you know?
Yeah, you got to keep it going. Watch how it changes too. A lot of people make a sound, it's just a really quick, and it's at the beginning of the breath, and it's shorter than 5 to 7 seconds. You can do that, but it's not really going to have good results long term. You got to be in it to win it, you know?
If you think of chanting, like chanting through the chakras, that's a really nice practice. You can start with like the vibrations of each chakra and go up through your body, and you repeat it. You hold the way that I was trained was you hold every like Om or whatever tone it is for 7 seconds, and you do it 7 times for each chakra.
Perfect.
It's been really.
Tell us what the chakras are. What are the chakras?
It's more Ayurvedic than Chinese medicine, and I'm not super familiar with it, but you have basically hubs of energy, and there's 7 of them. I'm pretty sure. And so you have like a crown chakra, the third eye, the throat chakra,
The heart,
the solar plexus, and then they're like one in the lower abdomen, and then the sacral chakra. Was that 7? Yeah. They're basically hubs of energy, and I guess the theory is that one gets blocked up. Tisa, do you know much about anything?
No, but I crown, you're saying third eye, throat, heart,
Yeah.
solar plexus, and then navel and root all the way.
Yeah, or bladder.
Another
Yeah.
language for energy and different hubs of energy in your body. And so if one gets blocked, it'll affect all of them. So you can kind of hone in specifically. And like in Chinese medicine, each element has a color, a sound, and a whole sort of vocabulary for it. It's the same with the chakra. So if you have a blocked heart chakra, I believe the color is purple. And so you would want to maybe wear purple clothes and say, chant the vibration of the heart chakra to open it. And then they pair that with different yoga moves too. So you can do like tons of stuff. And there's gemstones and all sorts of stuff. It's quite interesting. The chanting I found is really effective. It's that vibration.
Yeah, amazing lineage stuff right there. Oh, go ahead, Tees.
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's the frequency. What were you saying?
Thank you.
Oh, well, just that all of that stuff has come from, so, if we were to track back the lineage of this stuff, you'd find all the way back to the, the gurus at the time and the seekers of the time. All the stuff was spontaneous, so that even down to the yoga poses, that they would achieve a certain spiritual state or energetic state or just life expression state, however you want to describe it. And their body would naturally go into these spontaneous poses. And in doing so, they would have certain parts of the body, these chakras would be lit up, and there would be certain chants. These things would sort of just like spontaneously come through. And over the, hundreds of years that this stuff has been around, thousands of, the humanisticness of this, and the evolution of it, it sort of turned into this discipline. So we sort of reverse engineered it now. So it's like, okay, well, if you were to, obtain a certain energetic state and have a spontaneous result, this is the spontaneous result. So let's move toward what that would be by enacting it as a practice to then sort of reverse engineer and open that for this person. So when we look at these, these lineages, this is a spontaneous process that now we're reverse engineering. So just knowing that that's like that opening, and all these different things, we're actually moving back toward that. Rather than coming from like, sort of sitting on the proverbial mountaintop, making that all happen organically.
Have you guys, any of you ever heard of transposing?
Only music. One key to the other.
Yeah, it just made me,
What do you mean?
The conversation just made me think about this. This was brought forward by an anthropologist called Robinette Kennedy. And what they found was these, ancient sculpture kind of things. And, depending on, they'd have different poses they would be in. And basically the idea is that you get in this certain posture or pose, and then they do like a drum or something. And it's like a kind of, an ongoing vibration. And people actually then have, altered states based on it. So just, the posture is kind of like the reverse of what we were just talking about. You can spontaneously go into these postures, but then you could also take these postures and use them to kind of
It makes me think about the origins of herbal medicine, and it wasn't like somebody read in a book you use hawthorn berry for your cardiovascular health. Somehow there was some instinctual thing going on, and just like the animals do, people were like drawn to different plants for different reasons. Now we have a lot of information, so we can say, if it's a cardiovascular kind of thing, let's think about hawthorn berry or motherwort or ginger or cayenne pepper. Let's think about these different things. Somebody's done the initial instinctive work, and so I think it's exactly the same thing you guys are talking about. It's like
that's awesome.
We know this yoga pose is really good for opening up the heart or for doing whatever. But that was what we know now from somebody else's experience. And
yeah, it's like, so take the yearling deer whose mother gets hit by a car, and they're not quite yet weaned. They're almost maybe. That yearling knows what medicinal plants to eat for deer. They just have that kind of baked in to the very life force that they are, and like, I'm not going to say that we're just like the deer, and like life is just beautiful and sacred regardless of the form that it takes, and that we have the same ability within us. And then as practitioners are best to appropriate that to the authentic nature of the patient or, one term that we love to use, and I think this would span all of these practices, are practice members, people who are really like members of our practice because of how they interact and the community, the connection that they gain. We appropriate that the best. But the truth is that, you listening, you have the ability baked in to be able to know what these things are. And sometimes it just takes, one more little connection, one more person, one more piece in the community to really find that and help quench that thirst, help quench that craving.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, in where, one of the most powerful tools in diagnostics, if you will, is conversation, because the answers are within the person you're working with. They have them. It's just a matter of sort of figuring them out. And I think, in our culture at this point, a lot of those wisdoms have been pushed down, and we've brought in, more of this westernized medical religion, really, in a way, where we're, it's like, well, the doctor says this, and we've been taught, again, culturally, to kind of push aside those innate knowings that are there. So, and I know that, Becky does a lot of talking when she, first meets with somebody. She spends a lot of time doing that. I know that in Matt and Tisa, in your practice, that you're talking all the time through each visit, having a conversation with the people that you work with. What are you noticing coming up? What are you feeling? So just something that's important to note. It's like, you have, like you were saying, you have in you, all of you out there in the audience, have in you the tools to heal. It's just that we've been sort of taught not to listen to them. And so a lot of what we all do is try to help people get more in touch with those tools. And I know, and I'm sure everybody can say the same thing, but I know that my practice members have been my greatest teachers over the years.
Amen to that.
I think about pregnancy, Tisa, this is a good, but thinking about when you kind of are tipped off that something isn't, that maybe you liked eating before, drinking before, just doesn't, sometimes people don't even know, women don't even know they're pregnant yet, and yet they're normal, want that cup of coffee or a glass of wine or something that sort of goes away. So I think that we are, if we listen to ourselves, how did people figure out this yoga pose, this body position, or this plant helps me here? There's a lot of, I guess what we're saying is there is a lot of the way we're created. There's an intuitive something. Like, why, when I was little going through the woods and I would just stop and eat something, why didn't I kill myself? I'm sure there was stuff out in the woods that could have killed me. And why did I eat certain things and not others? I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. A lot of people have asked, like, so what are your weird cravings? Are you getting all these weird cravings and feelings and symptoms? And I was like, to be honest, no. They're not weird cravings, I would say, but they're the cravings of what my body really wants. So if I want to drink my cup of coffee, it's really not a lot anymore. I don't crave wine or alcohol or anything like that. It smells good, but I don't crave it by any means. And the biggest one was, I was on a citrus kick for a while, like nectarines and oranges and grapes too. I know that's not citrus, but grapes. And then tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes. I would just pop them in, like at the farmer's market. I just buy a thing. I was like, I guess my body wants vitamin C. And I've come to learn that, like, I think a lot of the symptoms or the weird cravings is just a deficiency of what our body doesn't have and what it wants. And I would say, working with you, Dr. Jean, this past year prior to getting pregnant, really helped clean my system. And then also Becky as well, having really good supplements to support my body, not having terrible symptoms, no morning sickness, no nausea. I think now I'm just having, my body's changing because I'm getting bigger. So it's like, that's a new thing, but it's not it's not like terrible like I've heard it to be. And it's actually been a very beautiful process. And people have always asked, like, what do you feel? And I was like, honestly, pregnancy has been very kind to me, you know, but I feel that if we plan this, and I know it doesn't always get planned, but if we take the proactive look towards it and make choices prior to conception, it can really make the whole process much more beautiful and less, I don't know, I guess some people say it's treated more like a disease than it is, you know, a natural process. And it's not. We are made and designed to create life. And so I think it's been very beautiful. And I think it's just the choices we make prior to and during the whole process that makes a difference. Not saying that it's not easy, because it's not. After 2 hours of adjusting, I'm like, okay, my sacrum hurts.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And some people do have more of a reaction to pregnancy hormones. So we do know there are some people, whether with nutrition or whatever, it's not really that issue. They might have what we call, what's it called? Something gravidum. When you throw up just constantly through the whole pregnancy. Some people, there are some aberrant kind of things.
Yeah.
But what reminds me of what you just said, one thing, Dr. Tisa, is we medicalize everything from pregnancy. What's the first thing you do when you find out you're pregnant? You start making doctor's appointments. And I'm like, that this is a medical thing. And then, you know, they're very sure that once the baby's born, it's a medical thing. You go for these well baby visits because, you know, why? What, you need to go see a doctor for a thriving baby? It's how the system is set up. And we make health medical. And I think that that's a big problem in today's way of looking at healthcare. It's good to have an obstetrician. It's good to have a pediatrician. I think pediatricians should be kept in the wings for when there's a problem. You know, have somebody on board, but not, oh, it's the 2 week, now it's the 1 month, now it's the this, now it's the that. It becomes a big conduit for special interests and medications and a certain way of looking at health. And I think, yeah, we shouldn't look at life, and we all agree on this. Life is not a medical situation. Medical treatments have their place in the whole grand scheme of health.
Right.
I think at the core of that is, again, the philosophy that when your body speaks to you, we want to shut it up. Like, oh, I have a headache. Well, let's stop that from happening. I have, I feel, something in my stomach, whatever the symptom we have, our culture tells us we have to stop it. And I think, when you were a child, Becky, and walking in the woods, you probably weren't so cut off, as we go on in life and we continually push down the signals. It's like if you're in a relationship with somebody and they keep trying to give you subtle signals, at first it's just an energy. Next to me, it's like putting the coffee cup down a little hard. And, as we continue to push those signals down, they have to get louder in order to be heard. And next thing you know, they're screaming at you and you're like, what are you screaming at me for? You didn't say anything, but the signals have been there all along. And I think that's kind of what happens in our body. We learn to not listen, we learn to not listen, we learn to not listen. And then the only thing that we hear is a scream. And it takes a little bit more. And then we think of the natural processes like pregnancy or anything, even death, as a natural process. Not that we shouldn't have doctors and, if we have something happen, but even something as natural as death has to be medicalized, has to be, sterilized and made into something that's not natural. And I think that's one of the core kind of principles is, where we all practice. It really is a separate thing. Healthcare as it is, in our mainstream society is really not what we're doing here. They should really not call that healthcare. They should call that medical care. And it's necessary time sometimes. You get hit by a truck, don't come to my office. Like, go there. But when it comes to working on your health, you really it's sort of an antithesis to health in that system.
And I think the tipping point there is that, is the problem, the symptom, something that we're looking to simply get rid of? You know, is it something that we're looking to simply get rid of? Or is it the possibility that, as you're saying, like it finally boils down to like this scream, is it an opportunity for change? Is it an opportunity to kind of like reorganize, regroup, and actually get more? So it comes down to, are you just trying to get rid of something to get back to like where you were prior? Which, like, not for nothing, but if you're trying to get back to where you were, that's what caused the problem in the first place. Like even an impact event, it's like there's a whole paragraph there, and the impact event is just like hitting enter on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole backstory. There's a reason that that happened. Like, sorry, but there is. So like, do you want more or something? Or do you just want to get back into that same loop? And we're suggesting, hey, choose more.
Yeah.
Choose change. It's kind of a good theme, you know, again, kind of getting back to like what we started with in this talk today is, you know, is using these things as opportunities for reflection, for change. And, you know, we could do, obviously, this is something that happens every day, all day. You know, we're constantly getting opportunities for feedback from our body, from our environment, from our relationships. And we can either adapt or continue to hold on to what isn't quite optimal. So one of the things I would encourage everybody, I know I'm going to do it, is take some time, you know, as the year winds up to really reflect and, you know, try to give some more attention to, I mean, you know, collectively, I think it's been a challenging year for a lot of people. You know, there's so many things, but typically the more challenging things are, the more opportunity there is for growth. You know, in the financial world, you know, like times of trouble make tons of millionaires are made. You know, in these kinds of times. So, you know, I think it all kind of ties in together in reflection and a willingness to adapt, I guess.
Yeah. Resilience. We've talked about that whole topic many times because, you know, nobody can keep everything. You know, we have to be able for things to change around us and things to change and to find, you know, I had to go with a new lip balm shape too, right? Long story, but the label I was using this morning did not work, so I had to redesign the label. So that's just what you do. You redesign.
You adapt.
You adapt. And then I was like, I really like this better. You know, so, you know.
And yeah, what we've been talking about the last few minutes, to me, it sounds like the connection between the mind and the body, you know, and how we see that disconnect and how, you know, medicine has gotten so mental. Like I loved your example, Rebecca, about the herbs, and way back in the day, we didn't have textbooks. And so we used our body to know that hawthorn berry is good for the heart. And then eventually it got into a textbook. And then somebody learned that and they elaborated on it. And then they teach that in a school, and the student they've probably never even taken hawthorn berry. And so it's all just this idea. And I think if we can sort of get back to our roots a little bit and kind of integrate and start looking at the larger picture and integrating that with our body and asking ourselves, does this feel right for us? That's a good
You know what I tell my practice members, because, you know, again, we use kinesiology as a tool, and it's really actually tapping into what you're talking about. That's what it is. You're asking the body, hey, you know, I have some intellectual knowledge, but what do you think? And my comment to my practice members is, you know, I believe that if we could all truly be in touch with us, with ourselves, you wouldn't need kinesiology, because you would just know. You could pick up an herb. Yep, this is right. Or this isn't right. And I think that's probably what, like he was talking about way back when, is like it's innate. We have innate knowings that are more powerful than I think most people realize. We've just become disconnected from that. And I think, you know, again, with like doctors Apatelli, with the work they do, it's pretty much all about that. That's why I perceive it, is getting to really who you are, to access the knowing within.
Yeah, which is both pre and post rational. So thought, again, is rational, you know, and then the pre-rational is the bioenergetic, you know, the life force and the emotion. And then post rational is that sort of like right place, right time, serendipitous, what we might call soul synchronicity, that's where it comes from. And that the mind is a slippery slope. And that the more that we can have access to those, areas of pre and post rational intuition, which is what we would call that if you have that well intact, which is becoming less and less, or the mind tries to hijack it, the closer you're getting to the truth, the true surrender to whatever the actual remedy or, even craving is. I mean, even if you just start with, I'm craving a hamburger, and then really like pick that apart in your mind's eye. Well, what is it about the hamburger? Oh, I think it's the mustard. Oh, well, what is it about the mustard? Oh, it's actually the vinegar. So you think you need a hamburger, but the truth is like your body's like telling you a little bit something about something else.
Yeah. Think about Dr. Jarvis of Vermont country medicine, folk medicine, Vermont folk medicine. Okay. He was a chiropractor, actually. Very famous book. But he would say, watch the animals, watch what they do when they're sick. They don't eat. They just rest their digestive system, or they do that, or they seek this out. And he really kind of designed his whole Vermont folk medicine around that whole watch what people do in nature. And, you can see humans really kind of going against that. Like the mom is so worried that the child is sick. It's like, just eat. Here, you need some food. You need this. You need this. And sometimes, the body's just saying, no, I don't. I mean, my instincts are telling me no,
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
You remember Dr. Josh Bush? He's the MD that's been talking a lot on Facebook about the microbiome and stuff.
Zach
Bush.
Zach Bush.
Thank you. I always say Josh. He posted something just recently about getting your feet on the earth, like touching, our bare feet to the earth, and how that can heal the gut, and like really getting our connection to the earth more than taking a medicine or eating the right or wrong foods or whatever we may be craving. But it was a very interesting article, just like coming back to the earth with it, which is like, if there's any time for renewal, and I know that it's cold out and we can't go barefoot, in the snow. I mean, I guess we could for a few seconds, but but it's really coming back to our roots. And Becky, I mean, I think your business is awesome as far as like our wondrous roots, our collection of our bodies, and we are part of the earth as much as we want to try and separate it to nature and we are, superior or whatever, but we are connected, and we need to come back to it. And, during the Christmas time is a perfect time, or winter, I guess you could say more, is just a great time for connection back to our roots, back to our connection with earth, and help healing the gut. And I know we always say the flu season's coming and all that. Well, that's because you have sugar day after sugar day after sugar day. And of course, everybody's immune system is compromised. So it's just like taking the time to really connect again to what is important, what have we seen that we have overcome, and how can we transpire that into something even more beautiful in the coming year.
I love that. Now, of course, my mind has to take me back to the earth. Like you wrap that up so beautifully, but that has to do with the electromagnetic field, that whole grounding kind of thing. And so we know that people who live in mobile homes, which are all metal, have more chronic disease. We know that truck drivers have a big problem because their cabs are way up off the ground. Some of them actually keep a chain dragging on the ground to connect them to more to the earth. So that's a great topic for another webinar, I think, in the future, because there are a lot of things in our modern world that separate us from the actual electromagnetic frequencies of the dirt. Some people build pits in their homes with dirt in them so that they can they can sit and just keep their feet set in them. It's a big thing.
Matter what you do that?
Next
Absolutely.
time I come in on a Saturday, you guys won't be painting. You'll be having somebody in there like digging a pit.
Digging a hole.
Yeah.
Great. We go rent a jackhammer and get down in my basement.
Truckload
What
of
are you
dirt,
guys doing?
truckload of dirt.
Yeah.
Well, hey, just a quick disclaimer here is that, we're talking about just on the intuitive and the medicinals and all that. And I know that all the practitioners would say the same thing, but, we're talking about really a gateway to creating more connection here, not necessarily the like how-to book. So just because a chipmunk is sitting on the rock wall outside your house eating a little, red-capped mushroom does not mean you should eat that red-capped mushroom. In fact, it'll cook your liver. So don't necessarily follow this to a T, but do follow the thread of connection that it offers.
Yes.
I used to have this, so it's like called grounding, and they make all of these devices like grounding mats, which I have a couple of those still. But I had this bed sheet, and it actually had like silver lining in it, and then you connect a cord to the grounding outlet of your house. And so while you're sleeping, it's as if you were sleeping on the solid ground. You're getting that electromagnetic pole and the negative ions. And when I had a roommate that had a dog, and when I would leave, anytime I left my door open, the dog would come and lay on my bed because I had that mat, and it never did that before I got the mat.
That's very cool.
So interesting. So interesting. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, what do you say, guys? Comrades?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, the theme of today turned out to be really connection. Connection, I think, is important, and hopefully we can all connect with the people we love. Ideally in person. I know there's some challenges, but connecting with ourselves, connecting with our loved ones.
And follow this thread.
In our
Follow this
body.
thread.
Yeah.
Nature absorbs emotion. So 20 minutes out there in, the pathless wilderness or just a little tract of woods, something that will get you out there. Not only will it help you connect, but it will also help to connect into your system, into the emotional system, and help you access everything we're talking about. It's a really nice full circle here.
Yeah. I was feeding the squirrels this morning, and yesterday they didn't come out in the snow, but the birds did, and they really did appreciate that I put the seed down like on the cleared steps when it was clear, because it was so windy. I don't think they could really sit, but my heated bird bath, they don't bathe in it, but I saw the birds drink for the first time. I saw them. Squirrels I've seen many times. So that's my little peaceful oasis.
Beautiful.
My little pets, my outdoor pets.
Yes.
All right, everybody, tell your birds to head down to Becky's house. Heated first bath.
Great talk today, y'all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Have a
Happy
wonderful
holidays, Merry
holiday,
Christmas,
everybody.
whatever you celebrate.
We look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Absolutely.
Done.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
So long.